After a total of 17 hours later, I have finally finished George Joestar, and all I can say about Novel Kars at the end of this book is I finally understand why Araki did not elaborate on his character once he became the ultimate life form, because I didn't think he'd get this ridiculously strong. Introductions aside, welcome to the Novel Kars video. I hope you enjoy. George Joestar is a non-canon piece of fictional work by the author Otaro Majiro. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, I am not 100% sure. His goal was to answer the idea of who George Joestar was in the original timeline through this book, among other things. How Novel Kars is introduced to the story is through an alternate version of George Joestar, we'll just call him Joji, who meets the ultimate life form on a spaceship heading to Mars. Yes, I know it sounds weird, just roll with it. Georgie meets Kars, the original Kars from part 2, who has lived through 36 other universes and has made a spaceship out of alternate versions of himself to get back to Earth, which he successfully does with Joji. Kars is a pretty key character in the later half of this book and becomes friends with Joji for some reason. It's really weird. I know I'm saying this out loud and it doesn't make sense, but even when you read the book, it still doesn't make sense. He just kind of just says like, yeah, I'll help you, because you're kind of chill like that. Like that's how it happens in the book. I am not joking. And with the other 36 Kars on Mars that have died to get both of these two back on the planet with Narancia and Pucci by their side, they will now face Novel Dio. So with the story context of why he's here and what he's doing, I think I need to elaborate over some part 2 stuff before I get into any of the crazy scaling within George Joestar. And the reason why this part 2 stuff matters is the book makes a pretty clear indication that Novel Kars is the continuation of part 2 Kars. This is not me just making some crazy fan theory, he just is. Now when it comes to the ultimate life form from part 2, his scaling is extremely easy to explain and pretty concrete. The reason being is because he's the ultimate life form, he should scale to characters who have naturally strong abilities. Basically you're looking at your Jotaros and your Dios here. This is pretty blatantly explained in part 2 when he becomes the ultimate life form, as it states it in the upper left corner of his introduction manga panel. So in terms of AP and durability, it should be somewhere in large city level to island level in terms of AP and durability. The reason being is Jotaro and the Sun Calc. I've explained it a numerous amount of times, more or less, since Silver Chariot can deflect the rays of the sun and these laser beams can be calced to city level to island level in terms of AP, and since Polnareff and Silver Chariot are outclassed by Jotaro and Star Platinum numerous amounts of times, Jotaro should scale to these calcs if not higher. This Jotaro with this scaling fights Dio, and both of them are pretty neck and neck even to each other, basically confirming the fact both of them are around that like city level to island level in terms of AP and durability. You also could argue in terms of durability it actually is probably significantly higher, but I digress. So since Dio scales off of Jotaro and Kars can scale off of Dio because he is a vampire, and Kars is also a vampire and so much more thanks to him being the ultimate life form, he should scale to Dio and Jotaro, putting him exactly in the same AP and durability range. Now in terms of speed, you can use stuff from part 2 and part 3. In part 2, Kars before he was the ultimate life form was able to react to UV light, putting him in that fast as light category, if not faster than light category. And since he becomes the ultimate life form and should surpass his limits, easily FTL plus. Now, if you use some stuff from part 3, old Joseph sometimes is able to outspeed Star Platinum the World and Jotaro Kujo, who have been stated in Stanstat guides in part 6 and data book guides to be easily massively faster than light plus. This is a no-brainer, we should all know this. And since old Joseph is completely out of his prime and is able to outspeed a character like Jotaro some of the time, in his prime he should be easily at this level, meaning that since Ultimate Kars should outscale Joseph, that means at the highest you can put Ultimate Kars' speed at is massively faster than light plus, same as Jotaro. So looking at part 2, Kars at its strongest in terms of stats, AP and durability should be around city level to island level, and in terms of speed at its highest could be massively faster than light plus. Now when it comes to Kars' hacks and abilities, he of course has every species ability on planet Earth to a T and then some, as he is able to surpass them, being the ultimate life form. On top of that, he is also a Hamon and vampire and pillarman who has stated himself against Joseph that his Hamon is 100 times stronger than his. And you have to remember that Kars has a 400 IQ, so whenever he states something, it's a for sure fact. You can then also use that statement to explain how powerful any of his his other abilities he uses, as they should be at maximum 100 times stronger than they were previous with anybody else using them. So yeah, when it comes to part 2 Ultimate Kars, I for sure can definitely say without a shadow of a doubt he's one of the strongest characters in the franchise. Now, within the next few minutes, I will guarantee the fact that your mouth will be on the floor as I scale Novel Kars. The scaling I'm about to say to you is true and is nuts beyond anything I ever could have imagined for the character itself. I thought Novel Kars was probably going to be a few steps above part 2 Kars. However, I was so unmistakably wrong. Novel Kars is insanely powerful and is arguably one of, if not the strongest characters, including non-canon and canon material. And the only reason why he's not top tier is the other characters within this book are being literally helped by the author himself. That is not hyperbole. I am being so dead ass serious. So let's go over Novel Kars' durability, as I find this the most fascinating about him, as I'm still trying to get my mind wrapped around what he exactly did. For context, Kars and crew, including Joji, Narancia, and Pucci, were falling down to Earth, and they were going to crash into Morio. They did, however, where they crashed is extremely important. They crashed on top of Aerocross House and Cube House. Now, what are those two places? Well, for a brief summarization of what they are, Aerocross House is a giant compass with some dimensional shenanigans. It's really not important for this. However, Cube House is a tesseract, and if you fall through this tesseract, you will bend time and space, essentially time traveling to a different location. Kars and crew fell through this tesseract and time traveled from Morio to
dying the life of a true Brexit geezer,
making Morio, an island at the time, literally flip over, causing it to become Great Britain. It's really weird. Don't worry about it. The story is totally bonkers. And during all of this, Kars eventually became a sphere protecting the group from this crash, or the toss as the text implies, looking very similar to his 36 Kars on Mars eyeball. And he saved everybody in the crash. At a mid-ball, Kars protecting everybody and withstanding this crash or this toss can be calced at a mid-ball to being country level plus, as when Morio flipped over, it became the UK, and there are implications of it being country level. So Kars' durability is pretty high. However, in full context of what actually happened, this is kind of a low to mid ball, cause Kars and crew fell through Cube House, hitting infinite velocity while falling through Cube House, meaning that Kars hit the ground at an infinite velocity, taking near infinite damage. And shockingly enough, this is the only time throughout the entire book after this event where he actually has to take some time to regenerate. Why that is relevant is because when Novel Kars fights Novel Dio, when they fight each other, they instantly make each other explode, only leaving blood. But in the text, it states they instantly regenerate, and even regenerate faster than usual to keep up with each other. However, in this space crash scene, we are literally seeing the limitations of the ultimate life form being near infinite in terms of durability, or at bare minimum, seeing how powerful his regeneration is. So yeah, having country level plus durability or near infinite durability is pretty crazy. However, that is not the only insane durability feat Kars has in this book, because there is more. Near the tail end of the story, Kars and Joestar and crew have to travel back in time to defeat Novel Dio, who is currently in the Steel Ball Run universe, which is universe 2. And the only way to travel back in time is to use Yoshikage Kira and his Killer Queen Bites the Dust and spam it to go back in time. The only person who can withstand all these explosions is Novel Kars himself, meaning that Novel Kars activates Bites the Dust roughly a sub 10 quadrillion times to travel back in time to find Novel Dio. Note how we find this number is just using Kars' age. He's lived from the first universe to the 37th universe, so it has to be in that like 10 quadrillion, 9 quadrillion, 8 quadrillion times. To add to this, Kars also states that Kira's explosions are not hurting them. He can actually withstand Bites the Dust explosion extremely well. The space crash from earlier did more damage to Kars than activating Bites the Dust anywhere from 8 quadrillion times to 10 quadrillion times. So when looking at Novel Kars' durability, you're looking from anywhere from country level to country level plus to low multiversal to near infinity. Jesus. Now, when it comes to his AP, it is shockingly a lot easier to explain here. Thanks to surviving the spaceship crash and fighting somebody like Novel Dio, who had very similar powers to Novel Kars, thanks to him being somewhat an ultimate life form, you can definitively say at a low ball, Kars' AP is somewhere in country to country level plus. A quick side note on top of that, neither of these characters when they fought each other were at their full power. Kars did not have Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem, nor did Novel Dio have Beyond yet. However, they were thrashing the city that they were in and each other, but coming back immediately from it. However, with Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem, Kars' AP can get a little bit crazy. Since Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem can destroy the universe, and multiple universes at that, and that's just not affecting the whole universe, thanks to Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem, he can individually target an object or a person, affecting their perception of time. There is also an implication that Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem can affect a person physically themselves and not their perception, but it's a bit weird on the wording.
What the does that mean?
Otaro Majiro. But if he actually can physically manipulate them as a person, that means he could instantly destroy them. And if you want to use the common argument, if you're able to withstand it, you can output it. Since he was able to withstand so many bites dust explosions, his AP could also be closer to low multiversal thanks to his durability feat with bites the dust. So in terms of AP, Kars is pretty cracked, having somewhere in between country level plus, universal plus to low multiversal in terms of AP. Now when it comes to the speed category, this is the easiest one to explain since he has Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem, which is a stand that can accelerate time to infinity almost instantly, because this book actually describes its ability extremely well. It's not this gradual thing. No, it instantly ends the universe and restarts it within like a few sentences. So Kars' speed should be somewhere in between like massively faster than light plus to easily being infinity. Immeasurable is also on the table as well. And just basically to back this up, you can also scale from part 6. And also for the person that's going to complain about how these stands break physics, the book itself states that stands don't care about physics. So there you go, the age-old question how these characters are this fast, it's just because. There you go. So moving on to hacks and abilities, the first thing I want to talk about is his intelligence, and that's due to the fact that, well, it's so overpowered that it has to be considered a hack. There are multiple times throughout this book where Kars has shown an incredible high degree of intelligence, where he shows the ability to understand the concept of heaven within this reality, where he's able to outsmart Joji in being a detective without even knowing about previous events, being able to understand the concepts of time travel going back and forth, and on a numerous amount of other occasions being able to outsmart the main characters and waiting for them to get to that point so they can continue on with the story. He literally figures out how to do things before the main characters and just waits for them to catch up. It's kind of crazy. And of course, the biggest one out of all of them, given enough time with a subject, he will understand it in full. The main example of this is stands. After dissecting Naranch's U-boat while in the spaceship, after some time, it's not instantaneous, mind you, he is able to unlock stands. And not just one stand, a multitude of stands. Due to him being the ultimate life form, he is not limited to one. It's actually nuts how smart the guy is. That 400 IQ is putting in work. But I do want to clarify, like I previously said, he can't understand every concept instantaneously. It does take a little bit of time. Now it varies from how fast he can actually learn something. I'm assuming the more complex a certain subject is, it probably takes longer, but if it's an easy subject, he could probably learn it almost instantly. So it's very possible for him to adapt and learn a plethora of other techniques from different universes if he were involved in a cross versus fight. And since I did mention it earlier, let's talk about Ultimate Kars' list of stands he can use. Quick side note before I start scaling some of these stands, all these stands are stronger than the original counterparts due to the fact that they all have become the ultimate version of that stand. And thanks to the part 2 scaling we did earlier, at maximum all these stands have to be at least 100 times stronger than their original counterparts. Now going from least notable to most notable, we start with U-boat Ultimate, which is a ultimate version of Naranch's U-boat. This stand is basically Aerosmith with a lot of perks to it, as it's a submarine that can dive into a person and launch torpedoes within, and it has the capabilities of flying and being able to separate itself, making multiple submarines. Kars' ultimate version of this stand has the ability of amplified sonar, and that's the only kind of crazy thing this ultimate version of the stand can really do. Other than that, it showed some very capable feats against Novel Dio, but other than that, the stand's pretty okay, nothing too crazy with it. Moving on to Dune Ultimate, which is the ultimate version of Dune, which is possessed by Sandman of the 37th universe. Regular Dune has the capabilities of manipulating sand in a defensive way, very similar to Gaara from Naruto, and has one impressive feat of being able to control the entire sand of Mars, giving it a planetary level feat. Kars uses it in the same way with a bit of offensive flair against Novel Dio, in which showing the standoff easily destroys the city that they are in. Other than that, Dune Ultimate doesn't show any special abilities, it's just overall stronger than regular Dune. Moving on, we have Ultimate D4C. Yeah, we just really ramped it up from like 2 nobodies to like one of the strongest stands in the series, which is a stand that is the ultimate variation of Funny Valentine's D4C. D4C's abilities consist of being able to hop to parallel universes when squished in between 2 objects. And if Funny Valentine were to bring a similar object from one universe to a parallel universe, if they were to come in contact with each other, would instantly blow up, leading to a very complicated one-shot ability to set up. On top of that, if Funny Valentine were to die, he can pass on his stand to a different Funny Valentine, basically making him immortal. D4C Ultimate should have all these abilities, but doesn't have any like unique buffs or anything. It's just stated, or to be implied, stronger than the original variant, as it only shows up once in the entire book, giving Ultimate Kars more immortality, one-shot capabilities, and parallel world traveling added to his kit. By the way, I'm not even halfway there. I still have 7 stands to talk about. Moving on, we have the World Ultimate, which is the ultimate version of Dio Brando's The World. Originally, the World had the ability to stop time for 9 seconds and had the potential to move around in 11 seconds of frozen time. However, the World Ultimate not only gains a stat increase, but also a ability increase, where it's able to stop time for nearly an hour. Kars has this ability now. Oh god, it's not ending too. I'm still going, by the way. Next, we have Poochie's evolutionary line of his stand Whitesnake, Sea Moon, and Maiden Heaven. Ultimate Kars has an ultimate variation of all 3 of these stands. Whitesnake has the ability to take away somebody's memories and stand abilities. Once taken away, it's basically a one-shot, as you will basically become a meat puppet lying on the ground. However, you can survive it if you have a high enough intelligence. However, only one character has ever done this within the book, that being Joji. However, he does have Beyond, and it might be just an outlier. Whitesnake Ultimate also has the capability of giving people stands, customized stands even, if Ultimate Kars allows it. They're just dumbed down versions of the ultimate variations of his stands. Sea Moon has the ability to invert gravity, affecting everything around him and affecting people. Sea Moon Ultimate is just a stronger variation of that stand and really didn't have very much screen time, so we can't really hyper analyze it like the others. However, in the Part 6 manga, if you do get hit by Sea Moon, your body will invert, instantly killing you. So yet again, with Sea Moon Ultimate, Kars has another one-shot ability. Moving on to Maiden Heaven. Maiden Heaven has the capabilities of moving so fast it's able to affect time, causing the universe to die and then restart. And unlike its Part 6 variant, in this book, it's almost instantaneous, as there's no long wait as the universe goes from one to another. Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem is that stand, but a hell of a lot stronger, on top of the fact that it can now affect living things and people, giving Kars universal AP plus or low multiversal, on top of boosting his speed to infinity or possibly immeasurable speeds. Yeah, Novel Kars is cracked. We all should know this by now, but I still have more stands to talk about. Now, these 3 stands are in this weird area of being like kind of his stands, kind of not. The first being Killer Queen. The reason why he has Killer Queen is, well, Kars psychologically torments Yoshikage Kira into being basically brain dead and then forces Killer Queen to be his stand. Like, he uses another person's stand. It's not Killer Queen Ultimate, it's just regular Killer Queen that Kars has persuaded into helping him. So it's more like a tool, because there's like implications that Kars can't gain evolve stands as they're unnatural. So keep that in mind. So Killer Queen / maybe Killer Queen Ultimate is like in this weird gray area of being Kars's. Now, if Kars did actually gain Killer Queen, he'd have another one-shot ability thanks to Killer Queen's first bomb. He would have Sheer Heart Attack and Bites the Dust. The next tier being is the Passion. Now, the Passion is in this also weird gray area. Technically, Kars can gain this stand. However, he never does for some reason. More likely than not, Otaru is kind of like soft locking Kars, not gaining this ability because he would be too overpowered for the plot. If Kars did gain the Passion, he'd basically have like a super cracked out version of Epitaph, basically allowing him to see the future. However, the reason why he probably didn't gain it is because it's a Dio exclusive singularity problem here, is my idea. And lastly, since Kars has Hamon, and it is stated in part 7 that Hamon is a gateway to stands, hypothetically speaking, Kars could technically gain Hermit Purple Ultimate. The stand would probably be capable of information gathering on a higher level than Joseph ever did, and in combination with Kars' intelligence, it would be probably hyper lethal in my honest opinion. So stepping back and looking at all of Ultimate Kars' abilities, he potentially has like 9, maybe 10 stand abilities at his disposal. And on top of all of those stand abilities, he is still the ultimate life form. That means he has instant regeneration, he is a Hamon user, he is a vampire, he is a pillarman, and has like 8 million different species animals capabilities all wrapped up into one. So yeah, he's beyond overpowered when it comes to hacks and abilities. And remember, at maximum, all those abilities are 100 times stronger with Novel Kars and Ultimate Kars than their original variants. At a surface level, Novel Kars is insanely broken. I think everybody understands that. However, there is a conversation we need to have, and this is probably going to be the most important part of the entire video. Novel Kars is a creature of context. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, at the highest level, Novel Kars is crazy overpowered. He is constantly evolving and gaining new abilities. He has calcs that put him in like universal +2 low multiversal. However, there is context behind all of that scaling, and that is Novel Kars doesn't see himself like that. Kars has stated multiple times that he wouldn't be able to survive coming from the upper atmosphere to the surface of the earth, as he would either burn up or humans would find his very near death corpse and finish him off, putting into question the universal to low multiversal durability statements and the infinity vertical shaft durability calc. On top of that, the AP stuff can get weird because of that durability stuff, and since a lot of the stand statements within this book are kind of very vague, his AP can also be put into question as well. His speed, not so much. They're kind of like really blatantly explaining speed stuff within this book. He's at bare minimum FTL, like easily. However, due to all of the crazy feats Kars does in this book, it puts in a lot of those skepticisms on the chopping block to see if they're actually true or not. Lowballing Kars being like AP country level plus, durability country level plus, speed in like massively faster than light plus is just disingenuous, because you're only looking at the lowball calcs because of statements characters have said, thinking they're extremely concrete. However, on the extreme side of that, looking at the highball calcs as being what these characters are truly capable of is disingenuous, because there is context behind that stuff that needs to be analyzed. Like, sure, Novel Kars can have like AP ranging to universal plus to low multiversal, durability in that same category, probably closer to infinity, speed definitely being in infinity. It's plausible. However, Kars doesn't think he's damn near anywhere near that, as he himself kind of contradicts it. So this is where I'm going to come to my final take on Novel Kars and where he should be at. A true Novel Kars should be mid-balled, unless the situation requires something else. AP is definitely for sure in universal plus to low multiversal. That's being backed up by Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem and its capabilities. Even if they're a little bit up for debate, it should be up there. In terms of durability, taking everything into account, it should be at least country level plus. The reason why I'm stating it's this is because Kars is not confident in being able to survive the atmosphere to the surface of Earth. However, it can be heavily debated, as Kars does get stronger throughout the book and the feats he has shown throughout the book. So I would say country level plus with an asterisk next to it. Possibly could be higher. In terms of speed, it's easily FTL plus to infinity, debatably immeasurable. That's thanks to Maiden Heaven Ultimate Requiem's power. And when it comes to Novel Kars' hacks, he has like 5 one-shot abilities. He can time travel thanks to these hacks. His regeneration is busted. He's incredibly smart. He's like 2 times immortal. He's incredibly powerful when it comes to the hacks and abilities department. He is absolutely nuts. Comparing part 2 and Novel Kars, they're not even remotely the same. They are completely 2 different characters. Even though Novel Kars is a continuation of part 2 Kars, one is so grossly overpowered compared to the other one, it's not even funny. As I read this book and was scaling Novel Kars, my jaw was on the floor half the time because of Novel Kars. He's insanely overpowered. And the fact that he's not the strongest character, because there are characters within this book that have the power of Beyond, which is basically plot armor the ability, is insane to me. Kars isn't even the strongest within this book. Both George's and Novel Dio are cracked. Well, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this long-awaited video. It was extremely fun reading George Joestar and scaling it. I plan to do a review on it soon. So with all that being said, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, stay hydrated. See you in the next one, ladies and gentlemen.